Bonus hour. Thanks for sticking around. I'm Jeff. Tom going to join me here in a second on the heels of Seminole headlines. Appreciate you sticking with us, but we wanted an opportunity as well to weigh in on a number of things, but most notably the schedule. And Tom, I was at a concert last night, so I didn't get a chance. And by the way, hello to the few folks that I saw that were avid listeners of the Jeff Cameron Show that were at the James McMurtry show last night. Good times at the Moon. But I didn't get a chance to have my initial reaction because I'm an old man, and that concert ended at 10:30, and I raced home to go to bed. I was like, it's late. We got to get home and get into bed, everybody. Let's go. How are we to function? But anyhow, so it's this morning, bright and early is when I got up and said, let's consume the schedule. Let's see what they got there and talk about this. Now, hopefully you guys had a fun time on the Smash last night. I assume that you did, but the schedule didn't come out till after 9 o'clock. So you couldn't have had a reaction then either. So this is good for us. Here we go. Let's look at this thing and talk a little bit about it. If you're watching on YouTube on Warchant TV, then the schedule is there before you, obviously with that Saturday, August 30th, daunting Alabama game that looms large. Noles are 1-3-1 all time against Alabama. East Texas A&M, September the 6th. Then it's Kent State. You're going to see a trend here that is important for Florida State, and that is that you play a boatload of your games at home to start the year. And, I don't love that, by the way. I'd like a more even distribution of home and away games, but that's what stands out early on is how many home games you have. You then play your first ACC game of the year on Friday, September the 26th up in Charlottesville, Virginia. That ought to be a win. You ought to go up there and take care of business. If you're operating anywhere near peak efficiency, you should destroy Virginia. You're going to notice a theme on my end of the schedule discussion, which is, if Florida State can just get back to being Florida State, this isn't that difficult. But because we haven't been Florida State, everything looks difficult. I mean, you can really frame almost every one of these games as a problem on the heels of going 2-10. You're back to playing Miami in early October. That'll be fun. That'll be here. That'll be a big, big game and moment for this new staff and for Mike Norvell to reaffirm his dominance over Miami and for Florida State to get back to being upper echelon of the league. Then you got Pitt on October the 11th, also at home. Got to take your first big-time roadie in that you go all the way out to the West Coast to take on Stanford. Stanford's terrible. End of story. They've been terrible each of the last 2 years. They do sprinkle in weird wins out of nowhere all the time, though. Like, even in the midst of their awful, they'll find ways to win games they have no business winning, like beating Syracuse, for example. And Syracuse had a great season last year. But hopefully Florida State will be buttoned up there. They get a bye, then they come back. It's Wake Forest here. Wake Forest is in transition, also awful. That's a nice game to have before you take on Clemson, who's got Klubnik back, and you're playing on the road, and you'll lose. Virginia Tech here Saturday, November 15th, and then it's NC State before Florida. Not ideal because it's a Friday night game, just like the Virginia game. That brings me to something else I want to point out. I hate when we play Friday night games. I loathe them. I love them as a consumer of college football, Tom, because that means Saturday's free. That means Saturday you get to sit around, park your ass, watch every game in the country that you want to watch with no obligations, work or emotional fandom. Otherwise, you can just watch the games. But I hate Fridays because of the way it looks. I've never believed, you remember back in the day, Tom, when they would put Florida State on these Thursday night road games. We were everybody's big upset waiting to happen. It was the worst and most ominous thing in the world when the schedule would come out, and I would see, oh, great, we're on the road on a Thursday night at Louisville. That'll end well. Oh, great, we're on the road on a Thursday night against NC State. That'll be their Super Bowl. They'll all come drunk from the fair, excited as hell to throw piss bombs. Here we go. and then that game would turn out to be a disaster. Oh, great, we're on the road on a Thursday night against Virginia, who's never any good, but they'll play like the 91 Dallas Cowboys when we're there. Guys throwing off their ass on the, 42 yards, inch stride, one-handed catch. Fans going berserk like they care about football in Charlottesville for the first time ever. You're poised for an upset. Always, always, always. And I get that same feeling whenever I see us on a Friday night. And a Friday night at NC State has doom written all over it. You know and I know, late November, it'll be chilly. We'll look uncomfortable. Those townies will go nuts in Raleigh. It will be a nightmare, especially since it's the week before you have to go to Florida. Man, I don't like it. I don't love it. We'll save W's and L's for tomorrow, but I'm not in love with it. But I'll counter it and say something else, but I want to give you a chance to speak. Your initial thoughts here.
Yeah, the November slate is brutal. You could see a scenario by which you lose 4 straight to end the season if you're going to be doom and gloom about it. I'm not saying that should happen, but we're coming off a 2-10, and Virginia Tech's not a bad team, got their quarterback back, and so they'll be, for a senior day opponent, pretty tough. I do like here the number one positive I see here are the 2 opening movements before you get to 2 key rivalry games. Miami has a ramp-up effect. I mean, I get that Alabama is the one that you start in 5th gear in the season. You're starting with a sprint. It's on an island, and whatever happens in that game. The likelihood is you don't win it. But regardless of that, Miami is a key game on the schedule, and you have 2 cupcakes, a bye week, and a roadie at Virginia on a Friday night. So that's an extra day of rest and preparation for Miami. Doesn't get much better than that scenario to host Miami, have a chance to get back in the win column in that rivalry. And then for Clemson, to your point, the Stanford roadie's not easy because they will rise up, and they played Louisville very tough last year. I don't know if they won that game. I forget if they won it, but
they did.
You go, what the hell's going on out there in Palo Alto? I feel like that'll be a 10 p.m. kick. I think that the ACC wants to use Florida State for that late window, the way they did Miami last year when Miami traveled out to Berkeley to play Cal. That was a 10 p.m. kick. So I feel like that's going to be a very late football game, but it's one that you're better than your opponent. Followed by a bye week to recover from going to the Pacific time zone, and you play Wake. That's your lead up into Clemson. That's as good as it gets. That's as good as you can ask for, save for a bye week outright before Clemson. I know that's a game probably if you're handicapping the schedule and the likelihood of victories, Clemson's either the least likely or the second to least likely of the 12 games on the schedule for Florida State to win. But I like that you have as good of a chance to be ready for that game as any on the schedule not named Miami. But then the finish is brutal. I mean, it just is. The saving grace you have for Florida, the roadie at Florida at the end of the season, we said this last year, it didn't matter. They will be beleaguered. And here's the weird thing about Florida's schedule. I don't know if you know this or not. Their opponent the week before we play them is Tennessee. They're playing Tennessee really, really late this year. That is atypical. We were talking about a return to tradition for Florida State, Miami being in September. How about Florida, Tennessee in the penultimate week of the season? That is really strange. But that does give me a little bit of relief for having to travel to NC State on a Friday night. You do get an extra day than Florida does, and they do play a game opponent in their 11th game. So it's just, I could see where you go 1-3 down the stretch here in the last 4, and it's not very hard to imagine, and you might be fighting for your life in that 4th game.
100%. And look, I said it earlier. When you're coming off a 2-10, every game on the schedule feels daunting. You just watched a season in which every game felt imminently losable. I mean, or that you were going to lose. Like it was a fait accompli. There was a whole lot of us going into that stadium last year or coming home to watch our team with this sense that, okay, well, what's the score? I know we're going to lose, but by how much? And do we get humiliated? Now, you cannot be that again, ever again, under this current regime. You cannot. You can never feel that way again. Florida State's got to get back to being a little bit more like Florida State, in which you go into any game against anybody saying, yeah, we certainly could win the game. I'm not going to be surprised if we win the game. Like going into the LSU game, couple years back, and even let's say the game in Orlando, you walked in with bravado. You're not far removed from walking into that game with bravado. That's an upper echelon SEC team, and you walked in going, we're going to win this game. So how quickly it can all turn. And it can quickly turn that way for you again in the positive. Like last year, it was, oh my God, we're not ready to play. We're not good enough. And we have a crisis of confidence on our hands. This is not going to end well. I mean, it just built and built and built. So what I would say is, and I guess what I'm getting at here is, I hate Friday night games. They always end up being larger than they need to be for whatever reason. And so because you have that one at NC State on a Friday night time late in the year, I worry about it. I always worry about when we play them on the road for whatever reason. It has been a nightmare for us many times. Even in some wins, you've walked out of there going, good God, man, why does it have to be so? This is a program at NC State that's never accomplished nothing. But they always give us a hard time. So I circle that right off the bat and really worry about it. And then Friday night at Virginia, same thing. It's kind of sleepy. It doesn't feel like it's going to, it shouldn't feel ominous, but I could just picture us midway through the third quarter, tied at 13. We're all like, what the hell? You get a sense of it. But if Florida State is to find its sea legs, right? Find its guiding North Star, right? If it can find its way back to being confident again, playing competently, expecting positive results when they stepped on the field, that's born out of confidence. Confidence comes from winning some games and executing what you're being asked to execute, being put in positions to succeed. We think they're going to be better coached this year. Certainly, we know the defense will be better coached this year. The offense will be operating under a new scheme. Gus Malzahn has always been able to get his team to run the football. If you have that basis of operation, running the football does a lot of things for you. It can also shorten games if you're outmanned. So there's a lot of things there that you like. I think that a lot of the games that we look at now and say, ooh, I don't know, that makes me nervous, you will not be nervous about. You wouldn't be nervous about taking on Stanford if you're any good. You wouldn't be nervous about taking on Virginia on the road on a Friday night if you're any good at all. You wouldn't be nervous about Wake, and you wouldn't be nervous about Virginia Tech. I mean, you really wouldn't if you were any good. So let's see if they're any good.
Yeah, to me, I look at this, our work schedule can mirror that of a travel schedule for somebody who lives in Orlando, Miami, Atlanta, et cetera, et cetera. That's not to mention people like San Diego Chris, who makes a flight once a year, twice a year, or Spartan Knoll Ralph, who makes a trip from Hawaii. He'll be here for the first 2 games because he just embeds himself and leaves. But, we're going to be pretty tired of these home games early in the first half of the schedule. The spreading out of the home games thing, I think, for local businesses. And then also, again, I don't want it to only make it about business or us, but if you're an Orlando Nole or a Miami Nole and you've got to really think about how to travel, you do get a bit of a break in middle of September, but you're not used to fanning it out this heavily on the front side. Home games appearing from August 30th to Saturday, the October the 11th, 5 trips to Tallahassee. For a season ticket holder, that's tough to speak for. 5 weekends in the span of whatever that is, 7 or 8 weeks. That's a lot to ask. And so this is where I think, this is what I was saying yesterday, the Alabama result, even if it's a loss, the way it goes down matters because that'll impact your East Texas A&M and Kent State home games and home gates. Usually you stuff one of those games in November before the Florida contest, and that's a senior day, and you do get a little bit of a kick out of that, a little bit of a bump to attendance. That's not so this year. We will use those as nice installation points for new schemes. After the Alabama game, all right, what worked, what didn't? Okay, well, we have ample time. We got East Texas A&M, Kent State, and a bye to get things tightened up. If they don't look tightened up for Virginia, well, we got real problems because that is its own preseason. That's 2 roadies that you're expecting people to make. Miami, of course, they'll be here, but the Miami game, the way it goes down, the result there is going to impact the pit attendance, I think, greatly. So it's just it's a tough ask there to make 5 trips in that short period of time because people have lives.
Well, here's the reality. They're going to come to the Alabama game. They're going to come to the Miami game. They're going to come to the Pitt game. That's it. They're not coming to either one of those 2 games after Alabama, and they shouldn't. Why the hell would you roll up here for those sorry-ass games? You're not going to those games.
If you beat Alabama, you will. You'll see. I think a distinct difference in those.
Well, we don't disagree that it'll make an impact if you lose or win the game on the next 2. Agreed, but I'm still they're going to be giving away a lot of tickets to schools across the Leon County. There's just come on, man. It's East Texas, whatever, commerce. Nobody's going to that damn game.
Yeah, well, and if you're a super casual Florida State fan who has some coin, and you want to come back, see your alma mater, see a high-stakes game, you're not expecting much out of the season. It's a 2-game schedule at home, and the 2 games you burn are
Alabama and Miami
before the second week of October. It's very front-loaded, but if you play well and you look buttoned up and you win some games there in that early stretch, Wake Forest might be a launching point into contention for Charlotte with Clemson. You could lose the Miami game, win all your other ACC games up to that point. You haven't played a bunch. And then Wake could be a moment for you. You win the football game and you go on the road to Clemson, and you could have a tiebreaker over them with 1 loss in the ACC win-loss column. So there could be stakes for Wake Forest where people would come because you're still in the conversation. Virginia Tech for senior day, and maybe you get one little cool air blast. I don't know. You might not get a cool weather game this year at Doak because it's November the 15th at your final home game.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like it, does it? I will say, if you enjoy traveling to locations that not only are beautiful and offer something a little bit different, you get it this year if like you said, you're an alumnus with some coin and you're not afraid to spend on your alma mater. Well, if that's the case, go up to Charlottesville, Virginia, folks. It is a wonderful city, a wonderful town, a great little enclave. The surrounding areas of Virginia suck, but that area is absolutely beautiful. You skirt too far outside of Charlottesville, you start thinking, my goodness gracious, what has happened here? But Charlottesville itself is absolutely stunning. Not to say that there aren't other wonderful communities in Virginia. There are. They're just not in and around Charlottesville. Charlottesville itself is great. Enjoy that and take it out to Palo Alto. As somebody who's been to that campus and has been in that stadium and has gone over to the Sunken Diamond for baseball and that area is absolutely breathtaking. You can make a big time trip of it in October. It'll be gorgeous out there. And then if you want, if you've never done the roadie to Clemson, it's something to behold. We both have numerous times. You got a chance. Again, if you're planning road trips around this season to follow your beloved Noles, well, Charlottesville, Palo Alto, and Clemson, South Carolina are all really good candidates. Obviously money, is a factor when you're making these decisions. But again, if that's something you're into and you can afford to do it, you get a lot of cool opportunities this year to travel and support Florida State on the road. That's not what this group over at Doak wants to hear. You're right. They've renovated that stadium. They want you back with open arms, and they did not get the gift of amenability in scheduling. Because I don't think, Tom, that a bunch of people who have to travel to an inconvenient place. Tallahassee is an inconvenient place because it's the sorriest airport in America. And we don't get flights in and out of here that are reasonable. So it's very difficult to ask people to drive more than 4 or 5 hours that many times that early in the season. In particular, when 2 of the games are East Texas A&M and Kent State. Kent State went 0-12 last year, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, man, good luck with that. That's a toughie. They didn't get dealt a good hand there as far as home attendance goes.
Yeah, if you're just thinking about the momentum of the schedule itself, where does it build? I guess kind of towards the middle portion there with Miami through Clemson. That 5 to 6 weeks there has a lot of juice. And if you come out of it with a winning record, you come out of it in contention for Charlotte, then those final 3 games after Clemson take on a life of their own. That's what you're hoping for interest's sake. The one thing I would also say for roadies next year is if you're going to go to the Friday night game, November the 21st, make sure to wear a poncho. Wear a poncho. Because you're going to be adorned with fluids.
Mm-mm.
Mhm.
I would just advise you not to go.
Let me look up when the state fair is in 2025 if they even have
Oh,
it.
please tell me it's not that weekend, buddy. They get all hopped up on goofballs at the state fair. They're shoveling their fat faces with cotton candy, rolling on into those games.
The fair will have been over for a month.
Woo!
So,
They'll
yeah.
come out of their sugar coma. There you go. Yeah, that's okay. All right. All right. That's not bad then. I never want it same week. There's a special weird sort of zombie vibe going on when they have the fair and we play there.
You know, in truth, good weather football games, you're going to get 3 at minimum. 3. You're going to get the Stanford Roadie. That you're right. That's going to be perfect weather.
Mm-hmm.
The Clemson game should have excellent weather,
Mm-hmm.
and then the NC State game should have excellent weather. To slash fairly cold. It can get fairly cold up there in late November.
Yeah. I keep thinking about where we've been and what we need to be. If we are buttoned up, well coached, physical on defense, able to run the damn football, I just feel like you shouldn't. I don't like to be dismissive of other programs after we go 2-10. I understand how that looks. And I don't like to be dismissive when we've frankly really only been good twice in the last number of years. And, I get that. I get that people are kind of like, well, come on now, partner. You can't take any of these games for granted. I mean, I know that you had a 10-win season and a 13-win season, but you've been boxed in by a bunch of bad football in between all of that, and that's true. But if you're right, if you're focused, if you're organized, if you are running the operation properly, if you are aspiring to get to something close to peak efficiency, it really isn't that bad. It's not. Like, think back to what we said about Florida's schedule last year, our rival, 2 hours away, whom we hate. And I don't like doing the thing where I live vicariously through their failures instead of propping us up and caring more about what we do and then turning our attention to them at the end of the year when it matters. But I will say that's a perfect example of thinking that it's an impossibility. They won 8 games last year, Tom. That schedule was absurd. They had a dead man walking at coach, and they won 8 games. If they saw our schedule, if you're a Florida fan listening to 2 Florida State guys talk about how nervous they are about a game against NC State or Stanford or Virginia, you'd scoff, and you'd rightfully scoff. So buckle up, boys. Let's go. Let's go. Let's be men about this. Let's get righted.
Yeah, you can scoff Florida fans, and you know what? You have a right to do that. But don't be acting like you've been winning 8 to 10 games every year. The last, come on now.
No,
you can say that's cute. That's about. I'll give you the snarl like the, and then that's cute. Okay, that's the limit you're allowed to go. Because y'all haven't been sprinting in years.
No, that's true. That is true. But again, I think we both would agree if you put those schedules side by side, we just need to shut up and play some football.
In general, I think there's your motto for 2025. Shut up and play some football.
Good football, physical football, beat you up kind of football. I want the people on the other end of that to look at it and go, damn, Florida State's coming in November, guys. That's what I want. I want Stanford. Well, Stanford is in October, but yeah, I want NC State and Virginia Tech, who has to travel to Tallahassee. Be like, damn, that November. Oof.
You should have heard me last night. I said some colorful things because I put this together, and on the bottom left column, bottom row, I had that in gray. I had this thing built home and away. I had the Pitt game. I had that weekend in gray. I'm like, there's no way it's a home game. And then ACC wipes it up on the screen, Pitt at Florida State. And I said some colorful things. It started with, oh, for F's sake. Oh, for F's sake. You've got to be kidding me.
Well, why? I do wonder why you wouldn't just flip-flop those two. It would have been nice to have Stanford on the road that week of October the 11th and then put Pitt on October the 18th back home.
Yeah. Or you get a bye and then you play the 25th against Pitt.
Right.
Yeah. We are burning the bye weeks on the 13th, 25th. That is a birthday bye, Buckaroo. I like that. That is a win for yours truly.
Hey, did you check real quick since we've already checked the 1 week? Did you
Yeah,
check the second?
I
What
did.
what do we got, buddy?
I did. The best 2 games that weekend are Wisconsin and Oregon, just for
Hmm.
taking in the vista.
Sure.
Not Palo Alto, Eugene, and then another LSU night game figures to be A&M at LSU, Texas A&M at LSU, buddy.
Mm.
Man, I think that I'm being called to Baton Rouge this year once out of the 2 bye weeks. I just got to figure out which one it is.
Sound like my youngest son who tells me every day, I'm going to LSU, Dad. All right, please do. I'll be up there to visit a lot.
My thought is now that the Florida game would be a lot of fun to go to, but because you'd have an obvious rooting interest, I'm going to root for LSU if I go to watch a game at LSU. But I think the fatigue factor from Camp, Alabama, you might want to take that weekend here. But the 25th, at that point, you'll have played Pitt. You're on the road at Stanford. The 25th, and you got Wake coming up on the other side of it. I think that's the roadie. That's the one weekend. If we're going to do it, we do it.
All right. Well, we'll keep discussing it. We'll do W's and L's tomorrow and get caught up on it. It's Jeff Cameron Show 93.3, Real Talk Radio, Warchant TV, bonus hour underway. So it may work out. We've seen coaches, most notably Dan Campbell recently, fail to win the press conference. Now, it's hard not to win a press conference when you're announced as a new coach. Generally speaking, when you're a new coach, you've been hired, you've been brought in because things have gone wrong. Things have gone terribly wrong, and thus they've had to fire the previous coach, and they're bringing you in to help clean this mess up. We got to get righted. So people are eagerly anticipating almost your every word when you take to the dais as the new head coach. And thus, as long as you don't say crazy stuff or dumb stuff, or you don't look like, say, Adam Gase, who was zooted out of his mind with crazy eyes, darting all over the place, looking like he was hopped up on goofballs, making little to no sense whatsoever, made you wonder how the hell did this guy interview for a job and get it? You can't have that. You can't have the people there going, what was that interview like that we said that's our guy? Because the guy I just saw, holy moly, I would have thought he could shoot me at any point. We got to get him out of the office. So here you go. Liam Coen goes to Duval, where the Jacksonville Jaguars and their fans, for whatever reason, love to yell Duval. I don't understand, but they do. It's like the one thing you kind of got to get right if you're going to even entertain it. I wouldn't. As a new head coach, I don't think there's a cause for me at any point to say Duval. I'm a serious man. The fans are not. I will talk to you about how I'll run the operation and why we're going to win a lot of football games. I'll tell you how I'm going to fix Trevor Lawrence, who's really fallen on hard times. I'll talk about why it's a quick fix, because I think I have a star up-and-coming wide receiver, a decent backfield. I've got a playoff pedigree from just a couple of years back. We'll get this turned around, guys. This is what I'm all about. At no point am I going to yell Duval. Then you just kind of look like a fan, kind of like a clown. But if you are going to engage in the pastime of yelling Duval, not unlike the folks who take the job at Arkansas who occasionally have to do the Woo Pig Suey dance, if you're going to do that sort of thing, you better know how to do it. You got to have some sense about you. You got to hear yourself say it aloud a few times so that you know, is this going to work? Does this not work? Hun, what do you think? This is my Duval. Have you listened to the clowns up there yelling Duval? They really take great pride in the way that they yell Duval. Is this something that they would embrace where they're like, oh, that's our guy. He can do the Duval. It's a little bit like when Jimbo Fisher was asked to do the swaying back and forth at Texas A&M. You could tell he wasn't comfortable with it. He didn't want to do it. It was the stupid dog that was there, and then there was the chick, and he was doing the way back and forth. And you could tell the whole time, he's like, these people are nuts. Thank God they're paying me gazillions of dollars. This isn't going to go well. I know it's not. You know it's not. But I got to pretend like I care to do this thing. It's not good. And maybe Liam Coen does a great job of calling plays in Jacksonville, and he fixes Lawrence. But, man, if you believe that these press conferences are sometimes ominous or uplifting, depending on how they go, then you're a Jacksonville Jaguar fan today who has little to no hope that Liam Coen is your guy. Because this is how he said Duval, Tom, if you would.
Duval.
Oh, I'm uncomfortable hearing it.
Duval.
You can hear the nervous laughter. You hear the folks in the crowd there. It's really, they're kind of, oh no.
Duval.
Is he trying to be a ghost? Like, what is he got a white sheet with eyes and he's floating around?
Duval.
Oh no. And do you think in the moment that whoever was in charge for the Jacksonville Jaguars to, cater to the media, cater to the people that were in attendance, to set everything up, do you think they sat at the end of the table and went, oh, we didn't know he was going to do that. Nobody told us he was going to do that. We can't have that.
Duval.
Oh yeah. Right. I don't have no more words. I don't even know what to say other than I think that this is going to end poorly.
It might very well end poorly. He's an excellent offensive coordinator when he has a ton of weapons. That's what I know about him. Florida State, the Buccaneers had a lot of weapons, but he knew how to use them, and he knew how to keep things off balance. I'm not saying he wasn't good. I'm just saying that when you're given ingredients, you know how to cook one hell of a meal. Now I'm going to strip you of a couple of those key ingredients.
What can you do? What can you do? Can you mix the lemon with the pepper? Can you do it?
Okay, I want you to imagine, and this leads into a nice opportunity for a live read, but Liam Coen, his facial expressions as he's talking, including that Duval, you've seen the video of it.
Oh,
it's really uncomfortable.
Tom, by the way, really, I'm glad you brought this up. That's just the audio, guys. And if you're uncomfortable and squirmy and feeling, like, please stop playing that, because it's got a Russell Wilson vibe to it.
Duval.
It's got see, it's got a real Russell Wilson vibe to it, where you're like, oh no, you're a serial killer.
Yep.
So it does have that. There is that. But if you watch it, it is even more disconcerting, because I've never seen Liam Coen without a hat on. Mm-hmm. And when he's got a hat on, it hides his doofus face.
Yep.
He doesn't look nearly as quirky and nerdy and dorky as he does when he doesn't have the hat. All of a sudden, when he doesn't have the hat, you're like, oh, you're just a dork.
Yeah, this happens a lot at tailgate scenes around America. You see the guys, they've got, what the hell are they? You had those glasses for a little while. Those
the transitional lenses that switch to when the sun's out. They get
I was talking about the reflector ones. You had those for a minute.
Aviators, those sort of aviator lenses.
No, the southern ones. For a brief period of time, you had they're the ones that all the fishermen wear.
M frames.
No,
polarized glasses. Polarized.
There's a specific brand. There's a specific brand of them. I'm sure the people in the comments section are going nuts now. But you have it's a southern lifestyle, outdoorsy. It's not Oakley, obviously, so it's a specific brand of sunglasses.
Maui Jim.
No, you had to.
What the hell are you talking about, Tom Way?
Google southern sunglasses.
I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know. I don't know what you're talking about.
I can't find them. They might be like the Maui Jims.
Ray-Bans?
No, it's definitely not Ray-Bans. No, it's the ones. If you go to an outdoorsman store and you see a sunglasses rack and they've got like the good ones that the people buy, I don't think they're Maui Jims.
I think they're Maui Jims.
The ones with fishermen, they're polarized for fishermen. Anyway, he's wearing those in the hat. The point is, you see a lot of guys like that out of the Florida State tailgate or any tailgate in the South, right? And you've never seen their face. You've never really seen that. Show me your face, like it's Chappelle's show. And then you see him at a dinner, or a corner pocket event, and you don't recognize them at all. Like, who are you? Well, I'm the guy that's been at a Hotel Indigo for the last 5 games. Oh, Didn't recognize you without the hat and the sunglasses because I've never really seen the way you look.
Oh, Costas.
Costas. There we go.
I
Yeah.
knew. Okay, so that's the Matt Millar look. He loves his Costas. Yeah,
I know, but you dabbled in the Costa.
I had a pair of Costas that I actually ran over by accident. Yeah. But no. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
So, but sometimes that guy, when you see him, you go, "Whoa, you're a weird-looking cat."
Weird-looking
I did not guess that. I did not think that that's how you would look. Okay, nothing wrong with that, but it's just in my brain. It's as though when people come up to us, especially in the old days before Warchant TV and the video stream, you look different than I thought. You look completely different. You have an image of somebody.
Yeah.
Liam Coen is in that camp going, "Huh,
Well,
okay, I didn't realize you looked like that."
You're hinting at the fact that he looked high as a kite.
He did. What I was going to say, and you can listen to this second clip where he's discussing honesty and integrity in the American way, whatever. It's like a Superman thing. But he sounds equal parts. This is the way he looks. He looks also equal parts like a Muppet because his eyes are all over the place. Phil Mickelson in 1996 doing a tutorial video.
Yep.
And third part, somebody who thought that a jar of cornbread hemp gummies were gummy bears, and they were just munching on them left and right. That's what he looks like as he says these words.
And that's really what this is going to come down to is honesty. I want to surround ourselves with people that are going to be able to tell you hard truths, be able to show you your blind spots, because that's really, like I mentioned, where growth occurs, when you can truly be yourself and be honest with looking in the mirror, knowing that process to get you there was clean and it was right, and the results will speak for themselves.
Darty eyes, wandering, worried that you're onto him, worried that you're on. Yeah, his head swirling. He's worried that you're onto him. Yeah. It's like the time that maybe you or me or anybody you've known, for example, partook a little too much and then had to go into a store and purchase something. There is a worry that perhaps they're all onto you. Some of you may understand of which I speak.
Some days you think, man, I am electric. I have charisma. That person at the register thinks I'm awesome. And then other days you say to yourself, why? Stop talking. Stop talking. They don't care. Just hand them the thing. Show them the barcode so they can scan the barcode. Get out of here.
You got to get out of here, man. You might see somebody you know. We can't be in a position to where we have to talk intelligently about anything.
And they say, sir, how's your day going? And you decide between two things, saying fine or saying this.
And that's really what this is going to come down to is honesty. I want to surround ourselves with people that are going to be able to tell you hard truths, be able to show you your blind spots.
I just want to know how your day's going. But I'm glad that the listeners got to hear us work through every brand of sunglasses there are. Yeah. And by the way, and I'm sorry because I can't remember his name, but the very nice gentleman that listens to this show who corrected me rightly and informed me that owning a sunglasses hut is actually incredibly profitable. You remember years ago where I was like, man, I don't know about the sunglass hut in the mall. I feel like that might be a money laundering operation.
He wanted to do a sponsor deal at some point too.
Well, he needs to come back on because you know what? I butchered. I was wrong. I turned out the profit margin for selling sunglasses is insane. It's like selling furniture apparently, but I had no idea. I was like, man, how many sunglasses do you have to sell? We could really make some money out there in the mall at the Sunglass Hut. And turns out, not that many.
We could create our own sunglass company with teal reflecting lenses and call it
Duval.
Oh, no. Never again. We won't play that clip anymore. It kills me. Let's relax, everybody. You may be just getting by in the never-ending month that is January. You might need a little something to get you through these final few days of said month. Well, here's the deal. Maybe you don't want to drink. So you could swap the booze for a guilt-free option. You got healthier choices. That's what you got, and that's a good thing. And it's America's only USDA organic THC gummy. Real THC, no synthetics around here. 100% legal. Don't get all nervous. Jeff Cameron Show listeners, here's a specific code for you to save a bunch of money on your first order. It's a good thing. Alcohol doesn't have to be the default anymore. Whether or not you're finishing up your dry January or just looking for a healthier way to relax and have a guilt-free good time, try Cornbread's THC gummies. Right now, Jeff Cameron Show listeners can save 30% on their first order. Head to cornbreadhemp.com/warchant. Use code warchant at checkout. cornbreadhemp.com/warchant, code warchant. Cornbread Hemp. This is the good life. Hey, Tom, since it's the end of the bonus hour, and we do like to also focus on some professional sports along the way in this bonus hour a lot of times, I did want to, this is interesting. Let me put it this way. I read something this morning Calcaterra wrote, and I thought it was pretty interesting. Forbes magazine has a big article about how much money MLB's 2020 revenues were and where they're at. They continue to rise. And he was correctly pointing out that 2026, there'll be time for a new collective bargaining agreement. And he's interested to hear how the owners are going to spin that they're all broke. Because baseball's revenue since 2014 has gone from $9 billion to over this past year, here's the number, $12.1 billion. That's up from $11.6 billion the year previous, and up from $11.34 billion the year before that. And you can follow along. Just keep going back. It was $4.5 billion in 2004. So,
I would say that if you compare that to the pacing of inflation in this country, which has just crippled so many, including us, the owners, we're actually pacing behind. So we're less valuable than we were 2 or 3 years ago. And there you go. There's your spin. We're all set.
Yeah. So here's what I wanted to read to you, though, that I was blown away by. We all like looking at things like park factors, don't we? When we discuss our pitchers and our hitters, we say, well, let's not forget to make sure you use modern sabermetrics so that you understand that there's a park factor involved here. So you're getting a guy who comes from one place and is going to another place. How do the park factors factor in all of this? Well, in the past, all of us would say that Coors Field would be the stadium or the ballpark that famously has the greatest effect on park factors, whether it's an offensive player and his numbers or a pitcher and his numbers or the defensive metrics, while baseball outfielders are attempting to catch the cavernous or effort to catch a ball in the cavernous confines of Coors Field is a better way of saying that. Anyhow, it's not Coors Field, according to StatCast, that has the greatest effect on park factors. You know who it is?
This could be negative or positive, or you're talking
Correct.
about most home run friendly.
It is, well, I'll give you, this is the largest percentage park factor, but it is positive for pitchers.
It's positive. Okay. San Francisco.
Seattle. So I know
is that right?
Yep. Seattle's T-Mobile Park suppressed, by the way. Now, offense was boosted at Coors Field by 10%. At T-Mobile Park in Seattle, it was suppressed by 11%.
Wow.
11%?
That's wild. Well, and they had one hell of a staff. Now you understand why those numbers mean, hey, look, 11% increase on an ERA is not nothing. That's across the board.
Well, decrease. It's decrease.
Well, I'm sorry, increase from the pitcher's perspective because you're better.
Yeah.
So you're taking 0.3 off of an ERA. You're taking 0.4 off of an ERA if you're a mediocre pitcher. That also makes Cal Raleigh's exploits that much more impressive.
It does indeed. The marine air is heavier. The ball doesn't fly as far. And while, again, it's interesting to note here, there was a guy who had a weather-applied metric that does this for baseball. Now, I'm not going to pretend to understand what any of that means, but he had something that was boiled down to the gravity at T-Mobile is a factor because gravitational forces increase the further one is from the equator. and T-Mobile is further from the equator than any other ballpark in Major League Baseball, and then he had the math to prove it, if you were curious, I'm not going to go through the math. I'm going to believe him. I'm going to say I think that's probably true, buddy. So there are a number of pitcher-friendly elements that are not simply a function of home run suppression due to marine weather and gravity and stuff.
Yeah, that makes sense. We're up against it.
It's kind of interesting. Goodbye. See you guys tomorrow. Peace.